Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good morning from New Jersey. Good morning. Okay, so I'm in New Jersey. I have a busy day today, and I'm going to go see my father at the cemetery, which makes me both emotional but excited because I haven't seen him in a long time. So I haven't seen him since 13. So almost 4 years. Because whenever I come to New Jersey with my kids, oh wait, I think I took the kids. Didn't I? Well, I don't remember. But anyway, it is cold in New Jersey, people. I had to tell you about this letter I got from this man, okay? Because I never get letters from men, first of all. I love you too, Susan. And it was such a compelling story, I almost wanted to turn it into a movie. All right. So this man writes me a letter. And the letter starts, as they dragged me away from my mother, I knew I would never see her again. And I was like, what the heck is this? So this man proceeds to explain to me that he grew up in New York. And he grew up with a single mother. And she was always working, and he was always left alone. And she got involved with some bad people and ended up doing drugs. And this was back in the 50s. And anyway, there were a lot of latchkey kids back then, a lot of kids that ran the streets, and my parents were latchkey kids. Not so much my mom, but my dad. My dad grew up in Brooklyn, and my grandmother was never home. My dad grew up in a library. Literally, he had to go to the library after school every day until my grandmother came to pick him up. So anyway, this man tells the story basically of so he tells the story of basically how his mother became a drug addict. And when he was a boy, he didn't understand. And eventually they came and dragged him away. And he describes in the letter this horrific scene between a young boy and his mother, where she's being arrested, and this young boy is physically being ripped from his mother's hands. And he said there was something about the experience that he just knew he would never see her again. And he became angry as a kid. He was put into a group home and became angry, which I totally get. Anyway, he goes on to explain that he never saw his mother again. And that as he got older, he became a businessman. He ended up getting married. And he created this business. And as his business started to grow, and I'm paraphrasing the letter here. He didn't want me to use his name, but he, as his business began to grow, one day he was out to lunch with a bunch of men, investors, and one of them made a comment. They said, oh, but so-and-so only hires women. And he said, that's not true. And they were like, your whole company is women. And he said, no, it isn't. And they said, you don't employ any men. Your CFO is a woman, your COO is a woman, your head of HR is a woman. And he started listening to them and realized that every single person in his company was a woman. That he did not even realize he was filling the spaces in his life with women. And he said, I realized that it was because I was longing for that female relationship, you know, when you lose it at a young age. So he created this business, and he said, if I'm going to employ women, how am I going to take care of women? So he sat down with his HR director and said, what are things about this company that don't work for women? And she was like, well, what do you mean? Everything works. He was like, no. I'm not so naive. My mother worked and was out in the streets to support me. And if she had had a boss who better served her needs as a mother, she would not have gotten involved with the wrong people. You see, he took his experience and his anger and his sadness and his loss and decided to make a better way for women. So he said that he and his HR director worked through the night to create a world within this company that served women in the roles that they currently were and the roles that they would take on as they grew, as they became wives, as they became mothers. And I'm reading this letter, right? And I'm thinking, is this got to be some bullshit? I mean, excuse my language, but like, he doesn't want me to say. He doesn't want me to say what company it is. He only wants me to share his experience about how he took his heartache and brought it full circle for other women, which I'm going to respect. So anyway, he realized that so many women in his company were dropping their children off at daycare at 6:30 in the morning so that they could be at the office by 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And they were leaving work at 5 o'clock to pick up their kids at daycare by 6. And he said, that's not acceptable to me. This is not acceptable to me. Why do we need to start work at 7:30? And the HR director said, well, that's just when we start. He said, that's not acceptable to me. That's not a normal start time for work. These mothers should be feeding their kids breakfast and checking homework and dropping their kids off and whatever, not leaving them in daycares and leaving them whatever. And I'm reading the letter going like, okay, dude, you need to get in touch with Bill Gates and like make some change in this country. But anyway, he changed his work day so that all women, mothers or not, began their work day at 8:45. At 8:45. And any special circumstances, they could start their day at 9:15. All they had to do is whatever. And he said that he started to offer any mom who needed to leave the office by 4 o'clock so she could pick up her kids could work half-day Saturdays from home. I'm like, okay, who is this dude, right? Anyway, he talked about health insurance. He started a petty cash fund for birthday cakes. He didn't want any child in his company whose mother worked at his company to ever go without a birthday cake. So any mother that needed a birthday cake for her child could take petty cash without having to explain herself, without having to demoralize herself or embarrass herself. No one had to know. He said none of his systems have ever been misused. None of his systems have ever been abused. Anyway, he wrote me this whole story, and he said that he started to listen to women. He said, and I was especially drawn to single mothers. What are the heartaches in your day? What stops you? What prevents you from doing the best work while you're here? Meanwhile, I'm reading this letter. I'm crying like a freaking baby, right? I'm like, excuse me, do you have a outfit under your clothes that's with a big S? Because I don't know who you are, but I love you, right? He said that he ended up bringing a mechanic on site once a week to check everybody's car, to change oil, to check tire pressure, all of these things so that women could get to and from work without having to worry. I'm like, this guy, So anyway, last night, it was late. It was like 11 o'clock when I read his letter. And I wrote him back and I said, I'm going to share your story on Coffee Talk tomorrow morning. I hope you will tune in. And he said, if you can express to these women the moral of this experience, because of course the moral of this experience to me is, how do we all get a job with you, right? And he was saying the moral of this experience is, in life, we all experience heartache, sometimes trauma, actual trauma. And he said, it is what we decide to do with it that matters. How will you channel your heartache? Will you be a vessel for change, or will you be a vessel for hurt and anger? And I wrote him back and said, it's such an extraordinary thing that you've done. And I get it. Maybe because I'm a woman, I see it as more extraordinary, because nobody looks out for us, I don't feel. This is not this administration or the last administration or the 50,000 administrations before this. I feel like once we are mothers, people expect us to be superwoman. We should work and drive and plan birthday parties and work and take care of our kids and sleep with our husbands and do the food shopping and be funny and be pretty and be skinny and be all of these things and smart and engaging and interesting and on top of our kids' homework and when the basketball uniform needs to be returned and who's walking the dog and who's going to the vet and blah, 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 right? And so I feel like a lot of times we are forsaken. At least our basic human needs are overlooked because we are expected to do, right? And he was saying, don't look at what I'm doing individually. Don't look at the fact that I brought a mechanic to the office. I want you to look at the fact that I was a boy torn away from my mother. I never saw my mother again. I grew up in a group home void of love. Nobody loved me. Nobody talked to me. Nobody looked me in the face. Nobody cared. And I use that to ensure that other people who feel like nobody sees them and nobody cares, to ensure that they feel seen and cared for. And I'm like, I love you so much. I want to kiss you all over your face. I don't even know if you're an old man or who or what you are. And he said, Jamie, the reason I shared this story with you is because I feel in a lot of ways you do the same thing with Coffee Talk. You have taken your heartache and your experiences and turned it into something you could give back instead of staying jaded and instead of staying angry. And I said to him, well, I'm not serving women in the same capacity that you're serving women. And he said, well, I would disagree, and I'm sure a lot of the women would disagree. So we had a very nice dialogue. But it does go back to the thought that we can take our experiences and say, how can we take this heartache and this feeling of forsaken and use it to pour into other people? How can I take my sadness and create happiness for other people? Can it be done? And I think he and I are examples of it can be done in different degrees. Some people think, well, I don't have the platform you have, or I don't have the financial means this man has, because I definitely don't. But you can. You absolutely can. And by the way, can I just say this? I can't imagine, like, I never saw my dad again because he died. I can't imagine being ripped away from my parents. I just can't. Anyway, I told him that I hoped he would watch. and that I hope that I did his story justice. I hope that you women who are listening felt something by the way I conveyed his story. I hope that it made you think or feel about your own disappointment and your own heartache and how you can turn that around and create change for other people. And be the change. And that is exactly what I try to do every day in Coffee Talk, is just be the change. You know, I'm not exceptional. I'm no different than anyone else. I'm flawed a million which ways from Sunday. I make a lot of mistakes. I say things that are inappropriate. I only wash my hair once a week. I drink too much coffee. I don't know. But I try. I do try. And when you see me and you hug me in public, it makes me feel awesome. Anyway, I hope he's watching. I think he is. If he's not watching right this second, he will watch. And I'm sending him the link whether he likes it or not. Anyway, I love you guys so much today. And I'm going to be asking you questions throughout the day because I need your help. I wanted to know if you guys, if I did a line of Coffee Talk nail polish, maybe 5 different colors that I love, that I know you guys love, would you be interested in that? I'm just curious. Anyway, these types of things. I love you guys so much today. Now I'm like all teary-eyed. I love you. Have a great, great Monday.